Ready? Recording. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Smarter Campus Podcast. I'm Zach Kinsler, and today I'm joined with Reed Helper, specialist in information and digital literacy. Today we're going to dive into some human-computer interaction topics and its impact on education. And again, here on the Smarter Campus Podcast, we're not just talking about education; we're changing it one conversation at a time. Reed, thank you so much for being here. Just for everyone that's listening, I think they'd appreciate it if you could just give yourself a little intro.
Okay, yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Reed Hepler. I work at a community college in Idaho. In the with As a digital initiatives librarian, archivist, and a copyright agent. And I also do some AI consulting there, and I have my own, obviously, Hepler Consulting. I have some AI consulting things that I do privately as well. I'm really interested and focused on bringing the human to the human computer interactions, to human AI interactions. And I think that kind of the principles of human computer interaction and their human centered focuses from the 70s can be applied to AI tools. So that's me.
Cool. I think, Reed, this is going to be a really interesting episode. I think, AI is talked about all the time, but I think
Mhm.
people kind of leave out the AI and human interaction and education. I think that's incredibly important. So, can you explain what human and computer interaction is and why it's so important to the world today, I guess?
Mhm. Mhm.
Big
So
question.
in the 1970s, businesses wanted to use computers more effectively. They had, the Apple, the Macintosh computers, the green and black ones. They're like, yeah, this is nice, but it screeches at us and it's really loud and clunky. And how are we going to use this? So researchers started to, you know, focus on how can we use computers in a way, not just like have them, um, fulfill functions that they're meant to do, but how can we create workflows and create standards of practice so that users can use them most effectively. So it's not just a business tool, but it's helping business productivity rather than having the humans, blunder around with computers. And so the term that they used in that field and in that research was human computer interaction. And so in the 1970s, they kind of focused about how humans work with computers and how humans work with each other. And there was kind of an idea that computers are kind of like humans, and basically, we didn't have a frame of reference.
Yeah.
We other collaborative tools we were using that were this large, and so people kind of tried to have like a one-to-one comparison of this is how humans interact, so this is how we're going to interact with computers. And in those research studies and things, they began to find out that no, computers are not like humans, and we need to treat them differently, and we need to use, think of them, and that's kind of where like functions and commands and coding and all those things came about as this is how we need to interact with computers that's differently from humans. Um, in the 1980s, however, they focused on the psychological aspects of human work with each other, and they began to examine how human computer interactions impacted the psychological processes of humans. So, yes, you have the computer, yes, you're talking to it, and it has the icons and the messages. How is that impacting how we're thinking about what we're doing, how we're thinking about ourselves? And then they kind of let it go a little bit. At least they didn't apply it to other technologies. It was staying with the computers. But I think that a lot of these principles and a lot of these ideas are applicable to AI interactions. And this is because, and I actually thought this was more widely used than it is. Human computer interactions are also called human machine interactions, which I think is great way to characterize AI tools. AI tools are not just, they're not digital brains. They're made up of neural networks, which are networks of computers, but they're machines. And so focusing on it in the lens of human machine interaction is kind of how we need to think about it, or else we run the risk of using them inappropriately and thinking of them in a way that's incorrect.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know a lot of that stuff. That's super interesting. And the one thing that I think is kind of really important of what you said is right away people thought humans and computers were the same. It's pretty interesting to kind of see history repeat itself there as AI and humans, there's people all the time saying AI is smarter than humans, AI is like a human. It's how do you get the point across, I guess, to people that AI is neural networks, like you mentioned. Like, how can, because I feel like that's a common misconception in education that AI is human, you know?
Uh-huh. So you hit on a very important topic. You can't, hammer it into anybody's brain. I, I have tried. I have a colleague, in fact, who said, or to be fair, their student told them the exact same thing that you said right there. That AI is smarter than humans, so we need to let it say what it's going to say and learn from it. And there's this idea that AI is smarter than humans because it's digital, because it is faster, it must be better, it must be smarter, and that's not true. What I like to do is I take them through and I show them diagrams of, this is what a neural network is. This is what a an LLM does. David Wiley, we recorded this panel on AI and copyright, and he had this 10-minute presentation on the nature of generative AI and how basically AI tools um, use autoregression. It's just like a massive number of regressions, um,
Sure.
and calculus, and they associate text with data points, and they basically use math, use calculus thousands of times in like thousands of dimensions, and they use math to massively predict with incredible accuracy, usually, the next word that people are going to want to see. And then they use the context to, this is a sentence, this is a paragraph, this is what they're looking for. And so I I have to take him through the data a little bit.
Mhm.
Mike Kent, I believe, he did a presentation 2 months ago for AI X education, and that 5-minute presentation, it's copyrighted by him. I wish I wish I could take it, but I can't. He goes through and he found the equation, the autoregression equation, and he color codes each part of that equation and shows like this is how the AI tool comes up with its response, and that's the way that I do it. But even after that, people still don't get it. I still get people who are messaging me saying, I gave an AI a one sentence prompt to create a CV website for me and just know about me, and it didn't do it. Why is it not perfect? And I'm like, well, that's kind of your fault, first of all, but also it's a misunderstanding of how it works. So and other people, obviously, my examples that I've shared, we really go into the data, but it doesn't seem to be working as much. People still seem to think that AI are human-like and that they are smarter than us. So yeah,
Like,
kind of.
I mean, it's complicated though, right? I mean, it is pretty incredible, like how, the thing that people don't understand, and what I often tell people in that subject is that like AI isn't AI didn't just come to be a thing in 2019. AI has been a thing for a long time. It's like artificial intelligence is just like you said, predicting the next word. And it's such I think you do a great job of kind of making it approachable, I guess. But
Mhm.
so like, you're an educator, of course. Like, how would you say, or I guess rephrase the question, like, what would you say is most important out of those things to teach students when approaching AI?
One of the things, and I'll tell you how I would do it too,
Okay,
and I
yeah.
put it in the blog post. One of the most important things is to stress that the AI is a machine. It's not a simple tool. It's somewhere between a hammer and a car. It's not as simple as a hammer, but it's not as complex as a car. Although maybe it is. I don't know. It's as complex as a car potentially, but it's it's not doing anything autonomously. You are commanding it to do something, and then it's generating things, but it does not do anything. A lot of people think of AI, and it kind of seeps into our language. In fact, I've noted when I've been talking to you 2 times, I've let human-centric or like kind of anthropomorphizing language into what I'm saying about, an AI thinks this, or an AI guesses this, or predicts this. And so I compare it to machines, but really simply, I compare it to instruments. And I kind of compare it to a piano, because the benefit of referring to these things as human machine interactions is that all machines are covered, not just computers. So you don't have to say, oh, computers and pianos and cars, all machines. So the generative umbrella of machines is obviously included, but pianos, organs, um, flutes, guitars, all these are machines, are technology. And so, for example, pianos are machines that are made up of multiple tools. You have the keys, you have the strings, you have the hammers. And each of those interact with each other to create the final result. But nothing happens until the human presses the keys. And the way that kind of interacts and touches the keys determines what you might think of the keys as kind of like the piano interface,
Yeah.
So like the keys are like the keyboard and the chat GPT home screen and stuff. And then when you press on the keys of the piano, they manipulate the levers, which manipulate hammers, which hit strings, which vibrate, which combine with each other. And then the human also kind of manipulates how that sound is actually produced. So it's kind of comparable to the text to image generation tools or the text to audio generation tools, where you have the text, you interact with it, but then you have these little buttons on the side that you can say, I want to have, a realistic picture, or I want to have
Oh
a
yeah.
this English or something like that, or you can slide it. And so I really like the piano as an example, but and
Yeah.
any really can be used. And so that kind of illustrates that the human should be ultimately in charge. And then I go into kind of the, best practices of you should really think through everything you're doing before you even touch the AI tool. Much like you would if you're playing the piano. I don't know if you play the piano or play an instrument, but you kind of have to read the sheet music and you kind of go through it in your head, and that's before you even touch a note on the piano. So, you
Yeah,
know,
and you can't just walk up to a piano and play it
no,
incredibly right
yeah.
away. That's an incredible analogy. I've never heard that. So I think it addresses a lot of the misconceptions within students. You know what I mean? Especially like right away, it's that, the thing will do for me. It'll do things. And it's like, it's only doing things because you told it to. And it's like, I mean, how do you like we're forever away from it being truly intelligent? I mean, in my opinion, but I'd be really
Mhm.
curious to hear what you have to say about
Uh-huh.
that.
I actually was talking with my colleague Steve Hagedorn. He and I do a lot of trainings together. I don't know if you've heard of him with Learning Revolution. We used to do a podcast called This Week in AI, and we were talking about there was like a week in June that all of the AI singularity news articles were coming out. Everybody was all worried about this, and I think it was around the time of O1 being released, and everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, O1 can reason, and the singularity is here." I talked about that. I don't think that the massive singularity is going to happen and it's not going to be intelligent. I think that a bunch of smaller singularities are going to occur. And by that, what I mean by that is that AI will become so effective, and well, I should say human use of AI tools are going to be so effective that these AI tools are going to become integral to the norm of different fields. So that engineering, natural resource management, um, business writing, um, data collection and analysis, all these type of things, that AI tools are going to become so useful that the norm is going to be using AI tools. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have all these tools be connected. And I don't like massive AI tools. I like ones that are tiered and have different functions and different little AI tools. But I do think that AI is going to transform fields field by field, not in general. I don't think it's ever going to become intelligent. If you read Dario Amodei's um, manifesto that he wrote, Machines of Loving Grace, have you read that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And he kind of he's kind of in the middle. He does think it's going to happen, but he thinks it's going to be basically they're going to be multiple intelligent tools. And so one for healthcare, one for, kind of being a judge, one for managing public resources. And so I'm more in line with his view, but I think it's going to be even a little less than he thinks. So I don't think they're going to be intelligent, but I do think they will become integral. But it all depends on how humans use them. And if humans aren't using them effectively, they're never going to be,
Yeah.
useful. So
Well, I mean, this is for definitely like the more advanced listeners, I guess. This is a super interesting episode. I've learned a lot on this. And the one thing that I think is really important that I've been really interested recently is that like a common misconception is like a custom GBT versus an AI agent. That's like a huge thing that I've been finding in, education and like people advertising to education is that like this has an agent, but an agent and a custom GBT are different, to my understanding, right? And like,
so yes,
yeah,
yes. Uh-huh. So and well, and it depends. It used to be, at least in in my sector of the AI education field. When you talked about an AI agent, you talked about something that could create something and could generate a product that you could use. So AI agent was correct at the time. Now AI agent refers to something that can do things automatically, and so that isn't as correct. But I do think if you use it correct, like for instance, I used, I'm creating a game, I'm creating a card game, a board game, a tabletop game. I invent games for myself, and other people, I convince my friends to play them with me, and they all think I'm weird. But I was able to manipulate GPT-4o into creating a PowerPoint file and an HTML file and all these things, and it automatically. And I had to prompt it several times and kind of get the right prompts. But I eventually got it into a groove where it was automatically able to create HTML. So I was able to create a temporary agent, but I would not be able to just say you're always going to create HTML for me. So that doesn't qualify. Um, Swarm, AI Swarm, which is also developed by OpenAI, they're trying to create a set of AI tools. You can run it on your computer, multiple AI agents working in tandem. So basically, what we're talking about when most people say AI agents is um, you can go into your computer and you can say, I want to know the weather. And then the AI agent will check the weather and then it comes back and says, the weather is this. And that's with all without leaving your command thing. It's all without leaving your command window. You're not, it doesn't open. And so, um, and so that's what they talk about. But this swarm thing is, you know, I want to check the weather. And if the weather is warmer than this, I want you to create this reservation for me, and I want you to schedule this, and I want you to email this person, and then it will call other agents, other people, and it will automatically email them those things. So that's what people are talking about when they're talking about AI agents of one command, and then boom, 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 multiple things are done. Um, I do think personally, and this is another thing, I'm a huge fan of collaborating with AI tools. The automation scares me, and I don't think it's going to be reliable. So when I talk about AI agents, I usually kind of soft pedal and go back to the custom GPTs or the things that require more human interaction. But I don't think that automation is going to be a huge thing. It could be, but a lot of mistakes are made. I don't know what your experience is. Have you been able to use automated stuff easily?
So I mean, it's like when I come to like messing with the automated stuff, I mean, what happens is it's always like, you see some demo on the internet that's incredible, and then you go use it and it's like aggressively less incredible. Uh, and that's just
Aggra-
something
Aggressively, that's incredible.
that's like what I have found, I guess, where it's just that they don't work all the way. And it's like, even if they do work all the way, they don't consistently work all the way. And then, in my opinion, that's like worse than it working all the way, than it never working. You know what I mean? It's that like
Yeah.
odd expectation that it would work. But we're kind of running out of time here, Reed. So the last question I always ask people, this is my favorite one, is like, what do you, I mean, you kind of already told us with the board games, but it's like, what do you use AI for, like outside of education or like, teaching people about AI? Like, what's your favorite funny AI use case? Mine's
Yeah.
cooking.
So okay, yeah. So I use it to to create the board games. I also use it to analyze the web for data and to analyze like options. So for instance, I created um, a Spotify compilation since the holidays are coming up of the best recordings of Handel's Messiah on Spotify. And so I found with AI, I was like, what recordings exist? What are the best ones? Scour the web for all the reviews. And I found like 12 of them, and then I listened to each one of them one by one. And I was able to find things that I didn't even know existed. So if I want to just scour the web for metadata and find obscure stuff, I use it for that a lot. You'll find also like I try like my outside of education stuff is related to my education stuff because I always find a way to combine the two. So I know you're probably hoping for something cooler than that, but that's kind of what I use it for is
No.
finding obscure things. I also use it as well to find information about topics I'm researching for my personal stuff. Like I used it to find articles um, in the field of the critical study of Mormonism. And so whenever I want to find out, what are people talking about this? And, obviously it's kind of obscure. And so or like with my comparative religion stuff, if I want to compare two religions, I go and find things about that, and then I always corroborate it. But it's really helpful on finding obscure things. So
Cool. Wait, I'm gonna try that, I guess. I didn't think that, I guess. 'Cause it can help you just like you're like, go find everything on this, and it will go find everything. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Whoever is listening to this, Reed, it was a pleasure. I think I'm gonna say this. If anyone needs any help on kind of teaching the obscurities or like the challenging questions of AI, Reed seems to be your guy. The piano analogy is one that I'm going to steal from you and use in the future. That's great. And again, Smarter Campus Podcast, we are not just talking about education, we are changing it one conversation at a time. So thank you so much for listening.